Hi, I'm Regdrin, and next to me is Stone of Triumph.
You might remember me from the Gratuitous Space Battles 2 high scoreboards.
And now that that promotion is done, let's move to Pelavost 9 Expert Mode. Now, tell me a little bit about your experience with this particular map.
Okay, I forget, what was the anomaly again?
This was reduced engine speed.
Oh yeah, this is the one where I first pioneered my cheap dreadnought strategy.
And what made you decide to go along that path?
I wanted to see if it would work.
And did it?
Not the first time.
That seems like space battles, or gratuitous space battles in general.
Uh-huh.
And I think that's a proper theme for this particular video, too. So let me tell you a little bit, by you I mean the viewers, because my brother knows exactly what's here, about what the enemy strategy is. They tend to send, well, they always send, slow gunboats and fast frigates. And if we're going by the expert map instead of the normal difficulty map, sorry about that, if we're doing that, what'll happen a lot of the time is that the frigates will arrive and start shooting down your flak or whatever else anti-fighter destroyers before you can get rid of most of the gunships, which means that you'll get your shields stripped before you encounter the main enemy force.
And this is why his destroyers are a decoy.
Yes. I tried putting my flak destroyers down the corner with the rest of my ships at first, but it didn't work because, first of all, it took longer for the gunships to get there, and second, they got kind of hung up behind the other ships, so the plan that I described worked a bit too well for the enemy. So I needed to give them a minimum of obstacles. Also, I had to give my other ships slow engines, or fewer engines, so that they wouldn't rush forward and distract anything before the gunships arrived. Having my ships slow also meant that their frigates had more time to move too far ahead of the bigger ships, and so I could take them down separately. Another thing I noticed here is that you don't need to destroy every last gunship, which is good because I'm starting to get shot down already. You just need to get rid of most of them.
And you can certainly get more than your investment back if you use destroyers like this.
Yeah. I definitely got good value for points spent. And speaking of taking down the frigates separately, well, that's what I got here. Now, one of the things that I ran into, what gave me a fair amount of trouble, is that these frigates like to shoot at destroyers, which include my shield support destroyers, so I had to put a couple way back down and to the left so that they survived this frigate combat. And I need that shield support because the enemy likes to use fast missiles, and missile screen destroyers tend not to last very long because they need to be put further up and they like to snipe those down.
Yep. Yeah, missiles are actually still pretty good for shield stripping.
They're pretty much the best. Well, if you don't count the overpowered pulse cannons, missiles are the best way to remove enemy shields.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I happen to have an anti-frigate cruiser up top because this happens. The top line of frigates, after dealing with my flaks, turns downward, and I need to get rid of them because if I start losing shields, they can actually do damage pretty fast.
So, what do you put in an anti-frigate cruiser anyway?
Pulse lasers mostly.
Yep.
Because these frigates are even worse armor-wise than cruisers. And their shields tend not to be too incredibly strong, so the 50% shield damage doesn't matter a whole lot.
Read at all.
And now I'm starting to run into enemy cruisers, and this is where things get a little thorny, because In a balanced battle, after spending all of that on gunships and frigates, they wouldn't have much backup. However, take a look at all those support ships in the back. If you're not built for it properly, or you lose some of your anti-shield firepower along the way, it can take a really long time to start dealing real damage to these cruisers just because of all the shield recharging they've got at the back.
Yeah, that's really what I had to deal with when trying the cheap Dreadnought strategy, you know, besides the fact that I apparently forgot to put anti-armor weapons on them.
Not that it matters a huge amount, but you need at least a couple. So you had to go mostly anti-shield in the end?
Yes. Well, also, missiles are really cheap compared to other weapons.
Ah, yes. Cheap in what way?
Cost-wise, thank you.
Okay, I guess you can't really out-cheap pulse cannons. And it looks like there's a bunch of frigates left, but they're starting to catch fire, and... oh, there goes another one. So that's not a problem. It's mostly those support destroyers that are a problem.
Well, you seem to have things well in hand.
Yeah, but it's still taking a while. And, taking a look a bit further up... oh, I lost my Dreadnought shields pretty early. That's actually quite bad, considering I have quite a few cruisers and Dreadnoughts left to deal with.
I believe in you.
Maybe, but I don't believe in me. Because while the armor too thick message is really nice, considering the kinds of beam lasers they're using, it won't take more than a couple of lucky shots before that changes.
Look, believe in me who believes in you.
No memes, please. The more concerning thing is that I had a lot of trouble getting through the shields here. See, they're still recharging it, and it just won't go down.
Well, that's because you've destroyed so many cruisers that all of their shield supports are allowed to concentrate on one ship.
Yeah, this is actually kind of a serious problem, because I found that early on my anti-shield cruisers were not focusing fire enough, so my plan was to destroy the first few cruisers a lot faster than this so that I didn't run into the situation I'm encountering now.
Like your anti-frigate cruiser blowing up.
Yes, yes. So, because the plan was not going well and the battle was dragging on, I decided to restart. And this time I decided to move my anti-shield cruisers closer together and further down so that they're more likely to focus on one thing and get the battle done sooner. Another solution would be to add things, but I'm going for a high score.
Enemy fleet detected
and
ahead.
What was the build that you used for your Dreadnoughts anyway? I'd like to hear more detail.
Oh, for the cheap knots?
Yes.
All armor.
No shields?
No shields.
Dang, okay. I actually think that makes sense because I think I mentioned how expensive shields are.
Let's see. A particle accelerator.
Mm-hmm.
A couple of pulse cannons, cause...
Pulse cannons.
Yes. They're actually not that much more expensive than missiles, and a mix of, repair systems, multi-missiles, and torpedoes.
Oh, the multi-warheads?
Yes.
And, yeah, torpedoes are another favorite of mine. Because when the enemy has really weak anti-missile defense, or in the computer's case, none at all, it's tough to get more cost-effective than torpedoes. They damage everything, they're great at removing shields, and they don't cost much power, which is a big problem with energy weapons.
Yeah. The thing is, people in online challenges tend to use a lot of missile defense, so I've had to do some rethinking at points.
Oh, that's right, I forgot that you were taking on some online challenges.
Yeah.
We can talk more about that later, but what sort of fleets do you usually see? Is there some sort of meta that you had to deal with?
I have encountered all kinds of tactics.
Okay, that's actually more interesting than I expected. Were any of them difficult?
Yes.
Okay, hooray, the internet works. So, I already showed you what happened with the gunships last time, so this time I focused on the fight that's happening lower down. And the blue ships that are in the upper left, or I'm sorry, upper right, those are the kind that are designed to use fast missiles. The dreadnoughts also use them, but these have pretty good orders. They like to sort of stay back and kite and keep firing missiles from fairly far away, so I had trouble getting rid of them early on. That's why... Oh, there goes another frigate. Blah. That's why I was pretty happy when I saw everything concentrating fire on this Flight of Fancy. Nice name. And its armor is already gone, so if I can just get some more hull down.
Or you can get through that shield.
Well, my own dreadnought also has plenty of torpedoes, and I use 2 particle accelerators because, well, I guess...
Redundancy.
Redundancy, yes. One of them could get destroyed. Although in that case, my dreadnought will probably get destroyed.
Yes.
But anyway, as you probably noticed that the shields are going down a lot faster this time, so the changing positioning really seems to have helped. Although in retrospect, I might have given them the cooperative order as well.
Oh.
Yeah, that helps too. No, wait, no, they're splitting their fires, so probably not cooperative. That's one of the downsides of giving the ships free reign, although in this case it's working out because it looks like they're just removing the shields of more than one ship at a time. Like that. So I was much happier with how this one started out.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when you placed your own fleet, what was your position? Did you put them all in a corner like I did?
Yep.
Yeah, that seems to be the strategy. In the online challenge I saw you take, all of their stuff was clumped up together, too.
Well, it really depends on the challenge, because one of the fleets I encountered was organized towards the middle, and its formation was actually pretty important.
Oh, really? Okay.
Because he was leading with cruisers that had, like, 3 hollow projectors each.
Wow, that actually sounds quite good. Also, I've been thinking some more about what I like about Gratuitous Space Battles 2 compared to the sequel, and after playing the first game a little bit, I really like the user interface when setting up orders and ships in this one.
Mm-hmm.
They have a lot of useful shortcuts, like holding Shift F to group everything together in a formation, and considering how often it's useful to group like a cruiser and a support behind it, I got a lot of use out of that shortcut in particular. I also like being able to right-click a ship and set its orders directly.
Yep.
So that sort of user-friendliness was something I appreciated a lot. Also, even though I didn't tell my cruisers to attack smaller ships in their orders, just because they're the only things they can reach right now, I'm finally getting rid of all of those supports. In fact, that's why I decided to take the lower half instead of the top half. Because if I took the upper half, I'd have to pretty much fight all of the ships under all of those support beams.
Oh, yeah. So the enemy still has a lot of dreadnoughts left.
Yes, it does. And my dreadnought has once again lost its shields. However, my anti-frigate cruiser seems to be doing just fine, unlike last time where it blew up before destroying all the enemy frigates. I think that's what really convinced me to restart. And I started to take some damage due to lucky shots. Also, I'm a little bothered by the enemy pathfinding here. They don't seem to be closing in, my frontliners, and I told them to move into, like, knife fight range. I mean, it's okay for now because my Dreadnought is doing a pretty good job, but my long-range ships should not be moving ahead of my short-range ships. In fact, I right-clicked just to see if its engines were damaged, but nope, just not moving. There isn't even, or at least there shouldn't even be anything in the way. So that was kind of weird.
Ah, you're winning. You'll be fine.
Well, yeah, but that sort of thing can turn around pretty quickly. I know I'm starting to take hull damage on my Dreadnought, so it's not going to last too much longer.
Enemy Dreadnought has been destroyed.
Did you ever run into those kinds of pathfinding problems?
Sometimes, but it was because I had forgot to set my range orders for all of my ships.
Oh, well, okay. That definitely sounds like a different issue than what I'm dealing with right now.
And range for all of the ships that they were supposed to attack.
Ah, yeah. It does help to be thorough there. Now here's where I started getting really concerned. By the way, this is why I wasn't concerned about just a few gunships getting away. They move so slow that any time one of my larger ships shoots at them, the gunship just disappears.
Uh-huh.
And this is where I'm more grateful than ever about torpedoes being able to damage just about everything.
Well, torpedoes can't get through the really thick armor.
Yes, that is true. I will go with you there. Also, ECM missiles are amazing.
Mm-hmm.
That's the main reason I didn't set them to cooperative, because of the issues I think I mentioned before. Unfortunately, there goes one of my torpedo cruisers, which makes me... It's kind of a relief that I have already gotten rid of most of the shield support destroyers. And my apologies for that graphical blip there.
Enemy system scrambled.
So, I'm assuming you won this one.
Yeah, it would be pretty disappointed if I let the battle go on this long and then lost at the very end. I'm sure that's never happened to you, right?
Oh, absolutely not.
Never. Yep.
Enemy system scrambled.
So what of the battles that we've talked about, what would you say was the most challenging for you?
Has been obliterated.
The first real battle, actually.
Oh, because you had to sort of change how you approach things?
Yes.
So what worked for you in the first Gratuitous space battle that didn't work for you so much here?
Well, the thing is, one of the beam laser types could actually penetrate most shields.
Enemy system
Oh, yeah, are you talking about the proton beam?
Yes.
Yeah, I did notice that pretty much any kind of shield short of the reflective type would get pierced by that beam, but not so much in this game. Now
Yep.
it's
Enemy systems
pretty strictly anti-armor, which is okay by me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't mind that kind of strict role in a particular weapon type. Keeps things interesting. And
Enemy system
this is where I decide that it has to have been a bug somehow. Maybe it's because of some interaction with the anomaly, but once this once this Dreadnought and Cruiser go down, the behavior of my ships get really odd.
Enemy system scrambled.
In fact, I'm getting kind of concerned because if my frontliners never move, I'm worried that they might not be able to put down the damage that I need to kill everything.
Enemy system scrambled.
Well, one of the things about this game is that if you stalemate for a while, the one with the highest percentage wins.
Yeah, and I appreciate that because there's some situations in the very late game where both sides have lost the capability to hurt each
Enemy
other.
system scrambled.
Also, I noticed that the fast missile dreadnoughts were programmed to withdraw after a fairly small amount of damage. You can see one on the right turning away right now. And if you hover over it, it'll say withdrawing. Well, obviously not in this YouTube video, but I noticed that. So, thankfully my fears were unfounded regarding my ability to destroy things. Which is, always a very reassuring thing, even though I'm gonna lose another of my cruisers right here, and...
You'll be fine.
Well, yeah, but... they lose 3 cruisers, I lose 1, and I'm not sure whose favor that's in, considering they still actually outnumber me by a fair amount of hell.
Score attempts, everybody.
Yes, score attempts. Considering how much this is dragging on, I kinda wonder...
Was it worth it?
Yeah, was it worth it? Sometimes I wish I could just, load up on as many ships as the game will allow me and just annihilate everything.
Why don't you?
Hold that thought. I think you might be onto something there.
Enemy system scrambled.
Because I've been sort of slogging through this battle, although I should probably have turned up the speed, because it's...
Yes, you should have.
Sometimes when I'm just watching it, I sort of get caught up in the moment, and I like just seeing everything go down in slow motion. Partially because the sound effects are so great in this game.
Mm-hmm.
That's something I really enjoy.
Enemy system
I think they put a lot of work into that part of the game. Either that or they just used some really good stock sounds, but I think I'm willing to accept that, if that's what it takes to make a good game.
Oh, everybody draws from these kinds of sound libraries. How often have you heard the Doom door opening sound effect?
enemy dreadnought has moved.
It's almost like the Wilhelm scream of video games. In fact, I've heard that sound effect in a couple of movies, I believe. And yep, when the cruiser both cruisers up top blow up, you're gonna see something that I found fairly interesting. Also, I found that dealing with hulls is kinda slow in this game. I'm gonna need to keep that in mind. Although I obviously wouldn't design a hull-only big ship, it is something I need to think about when designing my attacks. Like, plasma deals like 40% damage to hull, so it's not a great knockout thing, unlike torpedoes. And this is where I turn up the speed, because only the torpedoes are hitting, my frontliners are still not moving. And here's where things, as soon as that cruiser blows up, anytime now, I promise guys. Did you ever run into a moment like this?
Once in a while.
Yeah. So my torpedo cruisers are moving fine. I still don't know what's going on here, because there's plenty of room to move. Oh, that's why it was taking so long. Remember that kiting behavior I mentioned? It was constantly moving back.
Enemy system scrambled.
And now, here's what happens. My frontliner cruisers start to turn. So I was hoping, oh, that's great. They'll start moving forward finally.
Nope.
Nope, they can turn, but they cannot use their thrusters. So, I have to write those cruisers off as losses, died due to computer error.
So, you gonna speed this one up? Oh, it's already at maximum.
Yeah, that's what I get when I combine slow ships with this extra slow engines anomaly. And this is where I'm really happy that this
Victory is ours.
game-ending feature kicked in. So I won. Yay.
Congrats.
It took quite a few tries and quite a few redesigns as well, so I was fairly happy that I won. I just wish that the game worked properly in the process. And I've bought everything by this point, including components.
Oh, wow.
Well, let's move on.
Okay.
Starship design mode activated.
For this next battle, I decided to switch races.
Why?
Because I've been playing Terrans for, around, a third of the map? Or
Yeah, okay about that.
Yeah.
So, who's our next lucky contestant?
This will be the planet with reduced weapons ranges. And considering the pathfinding issues I ran into last time, I decided that when ships have trouble shooting far enough to fire past the ship in front of them,
Galactic battle
it's
mode
probably not
activated.
a good idea to have a front line or back line.
I see.
So I decided to make my cruisers all-purpose. The idea hopefully being that if they get in too close of a range for their torpedoes, they can fire at enemy ships that are next door, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. So, what race did you choose?
Starts with a Z, not sure how to pronounce it. The bureaucrats who want to explode the galaxy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and they really like their shields. So, in fact, pretty much all of their ships have a big shield bonus.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't actually attach any extra shields past the heavy and the buffer, I forget what it's called. The capacitor.
Yeah.
I don't do that because, as we've talked about, shields are really expensive. However, it does help with
Enemy
their
fleet
survivability,
ahead.
and I decided to just put all of my ships in a row, basically, with some flak on either side. So how'd you handle this?
Chief Dreadnoughts.
You know, I'm starting to wish that same strategy wouldn't work all the time.
Yeah, it works a depressing number of times in online challenges.
Now, for this battle, I decided that instead of using the anti-fighter destroyers that had just 4 flak cannons, I was going to bring in tractor beams because first of all, the slower ships anomaly is no longer in effect, and secondly, they're using faster fighters than before.
Yeah, what race are you fighting?
I actually am not sure.
Shield support beams activated.
But you may have noticed I put projectors on every
Everything.
cruiser, yes. And look at how many torpedoes they're attracting. I'm still gonna lose 1 shield due to this, but it definitely could have been worse. Here's this, I beg your pardon. On this map, I also discovered something else, which is the shockwave that comes from flak also damages friendly ships. Now, it's not a big deal for, say, cruisers who have the armor to take it, but when fighters are swarming over your destroyers and they're all firing inward, it can be troublesome.
Circle the wagons.
Yes, especially because, as we mentioned, those things actually have very good armor piercing.
Whoops.
Yes, whoops. So, I unfortunately, I couldn't think of a better way to handle it. It's okay, though. I'm still destroying plenty of fighters. And they still use sort of a frigate line, first of all, but it's not nearly as over the top as last map. And this time my anti-frigate cruiser looks different from the others. I decided to go with a separate model. And it does the job pretty much in the same way. I also noticed that some of their fighters are using shield disruptors. And while I love myself a good shield disruption, having it in fighters that are spread all over the place and using no other shield disruption weapons makes it kind of unreliable.
Oh, yeah.
Hmm?
I don't think I ever had problems with fighters using that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Did you ever have problems with cruisers using that kind of stuff?
No shields.
Oh, yes, right. Complete waste.
Shield support beams activated.
Also, I found that the Dreadnought design that I used was pretty darn effective. I decided that since I was sending this in and there was going to be this many enemy cruisers, I might as well just take advantage of the destroyer's many weapon slots and go for a shoot in every direction build as opposed to my previous try to focus on one thing build.
And how's that working out for you?
Well, we will find out. Now, these two cruisers in particular seem a bit overly outnumbered. Granted, their designs seem pretty bad at piercing shields and armor. Even so, there are limits to how long they can last. In theory.
Yeah.
That's a lot of shield resistance to high messages. That actually surprises me more than armor too thick, because shield design has not changed much over the many patches.
Yeah. Another thing about shooting every
Oh, my cruiser is right next to this dreadnought that's about to explode.
Oh. Too bad.
Too bad. I didn't even tell it to close in that much. Ooh. Now, what was it you wanted to say?
Yeah, the thing about shoot in every direction builds is that while just Dreadnought models do have limited fire arcs, they aren't particularly limited.
Yeah.
The smallest you'll ever really see is 180 degrees. This isn't Starfleet battles, everybody.
Yeah, but the splitting the fire thing seems to be working surprisingly well, considering that many of the cruisers are on fire.
Well, Dreadnoughts have a lot of guns.
Yes. And you know what? I appreciate that. I assume that since you based your build entirely on Dreadnoughts, you feel the same way. And look, my flak destroyer is just wandering in, because that's where the fighters are, and no one is shooting at it.
That's a destroyer. What can it do?
An enemy cruiser has been obliterated.
What indeed. And it's starting to cut into those escort fighters. Are they even shooting at me? At all?
I don't think so.
Maybe a little bit? Not even?
Oh wait, I saw it bounce a beam laser.
Oh, well, okay.
Yeah, even frigate shields can withstand cruiser beam lasers.
You mean fighter beam lasers?
No, frigates can bounce cruiser beam lasers.
Oh, yeah, right, that.
Targeting support beams activated.
Yeah, that's not something you saw in the earlier versions. But, you know, that kind of surprises me. It must be a really low-end beam laser, because the frigate beam laser, the heavy kind, will go through a heavy frigate or destroyer shield.
Actually, the beam is very thin, so it might be a light beam laser.
Okay, you know what? Who in their right mind would use a light beam laser, though? I don't know either. Also, the cruisers to the left survived. Oh, 3. They're all still here?
Yep.
I was not expecting that. Use better weapons! I mean, I like winning, but I also like a challenge.
Yeah, one of the things about online challenges is that I encounter a lot of them where they don't actually use the full allotment of cost.
That is interesting. Also, props to this destroyer or dreadnought design. It is actually getting plenty of armor bounces, so they actually managed to pour some armor on there. Then I hit it with particle accelerators, so there goes that. But still.
Yeah, there is a beam weapon stronger than the particle accelerator, but I think it's race specific.
Yeah, it's the pulverizer laser, I think. And yeah, I think that's Kraugerist specific. In fact, a lot of amazing things are Kraugerist specific, which kind of leads to a little imbalance.
Just a little bit.
Yeah. Though I will say, I think that the Terran targeting arrays are amazing.
Oh, it looks like you're wrapping this one up.
Yes, this one went quite smoothly. Unlike last time where there were issues, I think that my formation seems to be hitting the enemy consistently and not running into each other. Which, the first time I played this map, that was a huge issue, because I tried to put missile cruisers behind frontliner cruisers, and
It didn't work.
Yeah, it didn't work. The huge range reduction meant that my missile cruisers didn't have enough range to shoot past my dreadnoughts.
Dreadnoughts are big.
Yes. But, I mean, if you're a fan of, say, the Honor Harrington scale of battle, you might be a little weirded out.
Oh, one of them finally went down.
Yep. There's no chance of losing, though, really. Not really.
Not at all.
So, this map was, I found it to be very straightforward compared to the last one. And I think that part of that is that I wasn't going as heavily for score, actually.
What, really?
Yeah, I went for like 50% cost this time.
Oh.
As opposed to 40 last time. And you know what? I think I have more fun that way. I have fun playing around with everything that the game would allow me to have, and that gives me more room to try out interesting variations and just experiment more. So, I think that from this point onward, I'm not even gonna really aim for score and just try to provide some entertaining fleets to blast things with. And I think that's really sort of in the spirit of this game. But you introduced yourself as Mr. High Scoreboard, so what do you think?
No, that's fine.
Okay, excellent. Well then, I'm Regdrin, and this is Stone of Triumph.
Goodbye.
Later.